You can't escape meaning. A lot of people don't get that.
Like, a lot of these kids are annoying.
And I'm not a congregational rabbi, and I'm not.
So who cares?
He's an oisvarf. I don't know how to translate
An
that.
oisvarf,
I wanted to bring it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's who he is.
Welcome back to
Buckle up, baby.
episode 41. We are in luck today because we have an incredible guest with us, a longtime listener and friend of the podcast, Rabbi Judah Mischel. I'm sorry I had to introduce you as introduce you as Rabbi. I know that's
No, it's good. It's professional.
yeah,
It's good.
Understood.
Endorse me on LinkedIn.
Welcome to Buckle Up, Rabbi Judah Mischel.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Well, I want to start off because I think a lot of people have perceptions of rabbi, Jews and non-Jews alike, right? There's this idea that when you take the mantle of rabbi, you somehow become pedestaled by everybody around you.
Come what?
Pedestaled?
Oh, okay. I thought
He
you said something
says
else.
pedestaled, right?
I thought you said something else because that's it.
Pedestaled?
Pedestaled, I think.
Okay.
Pedestaled.
Off to a good start. So
I
maybe
thought that's what you were picking up on.
let's
No.
just to go here for a second, if you could elaborate on the various types of rabbis that exist within particularly the modern Orthodox Jewish community, from pastoral to other types, and the kinds of roles that
I
you've
did
been
not see this
involved in.
coming, but I'm open to this.
No, it's going to get
Well,
real.
it's an entryway in.
Yeah, trust
It's an
me.
entryway
I'm
in.
open
We'll
to
see
Does
where
it, feel, it
takes
feels
us.
more formal than you thought?
No, it's all we could do this. I mean, the whole idea of being a rabbi
Yeah.
implies being a teacher. It means someone who takes responsibility for the transmission of an idea or values. It might mean somebody who is the leader of a community, or somebody who plays the role of some formal, teaching or instruction, or somebody who is a decisor of law. But what essentially, like, to earn that degree of rabbi is like a professional degree.
Yeah.
Meaning you take tests and you pass those tests.
Right.
But it implies that you're somebody who's living up to that information, that content, that you're a person who's a person of values and ethics and a standard bearer and everything like that.
Yeah.
And part of the transmission. But really, it's about taking responsibility for an idea and for people.
But that's not what you were asking, was it?
Well, no, I was, because it does come with a certain territory that other kinds of higher degrees do not come with, which is a sort of call on your own character to be elevated and hold yourself to a higher standard.
Yeah.
Whereas an academic, a doctor, lawyer, they have a higher standard professionally, but personally, they could still almost be whoever they want. I wonder if you find that fair of us as a community to ask of rabbis to almost be better than the rest of us.
Bertrand Russell had there's a famous anecdote that
Bertrand Russell, here we go.
I'm not familiar with his work. I know the name.
it was a theologian and philosopher, and spoke about ethics and
Yeah.
living a certain way, and
Liberal.
but it was also no, he was also like a real I don't know what the real oisvarf.
Yeah.
I mean, he was.
You're going to have to do that one for us.
He's an oisvarf. I don't know how to translate that.
Oisvarf. Yeah.
I can't say what the other he was a
We don't have
Yeah.
sponsors.
he was no good Nick.
Oh, okay. No good. That sounded like a negative word.
Yeah, he was-
we'll leave it
he
at
was-
that. Let
was-
them look it up. But there's a famous philosophy of not social justice. What's the word that he had a certain philosophy about? Our society is only as good as how we take care of the poorest and worst out among us.
No, but in his personal life, he was a jerk. I mean, he wasn't a person who was like a very nice guy. So he was once challenged by a fellow professor. I don't know if this is an apocryphal story. He was once challenged by a certain professor saying, like, you talk about the society, and you talk about culture, and you talk about ethics, and you talk about morality, and meanwhile, you're like an oisvarf.
I like this word.
Oh, it's very.
You just
good.
titled our episode.
It's a good
Oisvarf.
substitute for it.
Okay, I got it.
And he said to him, well, he guy was apparently like a professor of mathematics or calculus, and he's like, did anybody ever ask you why you're not a triangle? It's an idea. I'm telling you an idea. Rabbis are held appropriately to a different standard, because when you're dealing with content that's not just ideas, but that's living those ideas, ethics, morality, representing, so to speak, what God's will is as iterated through Jewish law or through Jewish life or living or information. You're expected to be somebody who embodies that. Fair or not fair, it's not just about achieving a certain level on your LSAT or GRE.
Right.
It's like, how much are you living with this content and being able to transmit it over and embody it and give it over to other people. And and yeah, behavior is sometimes is an important part of the packaging.
Right.
And
You got to pass the bar of God's law.
yeah, it's not just the message; it's the means also.
Right.
So tell us about when you're not being a rabbi professionally, and you're not with your family. What's Judah Mischel's life like when it's just you with 3 hours free?
I'm here.
Chilling. But for people who don't know who you are, I want to get to that. I just don't want to like add in front of it just to get you to where you how
I
you
thought
got.
did you write me a bio like you did for Ben Vago?
I love that you saw it.
I'm saying
I
like
thought that was excellent. It was one of the
That was
one of the
phenomenal.
weirder starts to a
It felt
podcast.
very uncomfortable in the room.
I was like I wanted to hear like
It made it so good. It was so good to edit. It was just like Michael's reading this made-up, tongue-in-cheek story.
Not born in
And
the
he goes,
1950s.
I wasn't born in the 1950s. My father was. I wasn't born in the 1950s. My father was. But
actually,
actually, my grandfather actually did fly planes. And you're like, huh? He was like BSing the test, but got some answers right, and it made it very interesting. Yeah. So your background. I mean, so we talk about not to hijack your question, but just for a moment.
Please.
Just because for some more context here. You haven't been in the role. There's certain rabbis that are in certain roles that I think the standard is sort of at its highest. You have educator rabbi, and then you have the pulpit pastoral rabbi.
Yeah, that's not me.
And, like on one level, yes, on all those levels, you have to hold yourself to a standard. But like on a certain, for the pastoral rabbi, for example, like they can't even have real friends. That's hard. That's a hard sacrifice. So I'm just curious, your experience in the rabbi role has been primarily in education, right?
Yeah, I mean, only really. I was never a congregational rabbi.
Right.
Even in the educational role, and know each other from that from that time.
Yeah, you were like, how old were you? Like 17? I thought you were like 40 probably.
Wait, Rabbi Judah Mischel was your high school rabbi?
I never had you as a teacher, but I think I was in 9th grade when you were there. Yeah. And I think that was your last year there. Yeah.
He's a good guy. He's doing okay.
I was a good guy.
He's pounding away.
No, I
was a
became
good
a
guy in
rabbi
9th
because
grade.
I wanted to have the opportunity to affect people in a positive way. I love people, love being around people, I love meeting people, love the idea of sharing with people and being shared with. I feel like I'm like that. I thrive on that. And I got excited about Yiddishkeit, about Judaism and Jewish ideas, and I was passionate for Jewish ideas, and it just kind of seemed like a natural way to go about it. I never had in mind to be specifically a rabbi of any specific type of thing. It kind of ended up that I was in Frisch, and I loved it. I was a student at Frisch, and I ended up being a teacher there. Just a couple years later, using the faculty bathroom was a thrill. Yeah, I'll show them, and having being there with all my old high school teachers was like, it was something.
Yeah.
Like there was something about that. And then we got married, and I was very fortunate to like end up in my in yeshiva in Israel. My in-laws had a yeshiva in Israel. And like it kind of happened like we had other ideas of like where it might go. I was like wanted to be a campus rabbi, wanted to fabring with the college kids, meaning like I was in my 20s. I wanted to, throw down and have a keg party and show the beauty of Yiddishkeit and bring people and enjoy people. And
when you say fabrang, you mean like hang in the best way possible.
Yeah, I wanted
for the folks.
I wanted to enjoy. I wanted to fabring it. And
that's a good shirt. That's your merch right there. Bring it.
And create a positive access point for enjoyable Yiddishkeit. And you can't have that without the transmission of ideas, without the study of text or Torah instruction being at the center of it. And it wasn't even a love of learning necessarily that drove me to like become a rabbi. A lot of times people love learning and they become a rabbi. Like for me, it was kind of like the opposite. Like I wanted to be a rabbi, even though I struggled with some of the frontal learning, and become more and more in love with learning Torah as life has gone on. In fact, I enjoy learning Torah, and I think I learn more Torah now than I did then, which is ironic because most people learning Torah when they're in their academic years, their yeshiva, their college years, and then as life goes on, you kind of have more responsibilities. For me, it's kind of the opposite. Now that I have less of a formal rabbinic role in the world, I'm finding more of an attachment and a freedom for Torah because it's less about feeding the professional need to keep up, and now it's really something which has become passionate. So I was never a congregational rabbi. I was a classroom or a shiur, which is like also a traditional kind of lecture rabbi. But it was always very much, I aspired to not be top down. I didn't think that I was able to be or worthy of being a top down kind of a guy.
Too political?
Yeah. Also, like, not realistic. It was not. I wasn't.
Did it not speak to you, like, temperament wise? It just was it a gut thing? Like, I don't want to be in the have to do that.
I think I was afraid at a certain point of, like, intimidated by the idea of having to, like, help people, like, make real decisions about you know, life and living and law. And then when I kind of, like, at a certain point, like, something I could do this. Like, I was the rabbi in Camp HASC, and you know, I kind of, like, got a lot of help from mentors and a lot of help from teachers, and kind of came up with, you know, the top 100 scenarios that can come up, and I mastered that specific area, or mastered whatever. I became comfortable enough with that specific area of the same scenarios that repeated themselves, you know, in that summer context. Being a rabbi of a congregation is just much more broad. And you're dealing with families and kids and adults and birth and death and hatch, match and dispatch and all sorts of stuff.
You gotta start bowing and nodding all the time. Yeah.
I'm like remembering people's names.
You have to mask how you feel. You have to mask how you feel about everything with.
You can't eat it at Kiddush. Exactly.
And how do those rabbis feel about everybody? That's the cost.
Also,
to
my wife's father is a congregational rabbi,
Right.
and when there was an opportunity I had in Israel with a beautiful community to, like, we got offered to, like, step into this role, and it was a perfect, like, you know, it seemed like a perfect opportunity where I was professionally and personally, you know, 10 years ago, to, like, take on this shul and like lead it as as a conscious kind of chevra, more of like a lateral type of thing. And I was, like, kind of, like, open and excited about it. And I mentioned it to my wife, and I saw her face just, like, go blank.
Not again.
You know, I saw, like, a lot of, you know, the pride and the excitement and the joy of the responsibility of leadership, but also that comes with a major price tag.
Yeah.
And I saw it on her face. I was like, no, I don't want to do that anyway. You know, like,
Right.
You know, it wasn't.
So you don't feel this dichotomy between who you are publicly and who you
I aspire not to. I mean, I'm sure I am. I mean, everybody's presenting, and we're all kind of, like, you know, acting in lots of ways. I mean, we all have a certain brand and persona that we kind of. But I don't know. I'm aspiring for it not to be. It's bad for everybody in that. It takes a tremendous toll on a person, tremendous toll in nefesh and the soul, and just, like, your inner world, like the inability to just be okay with yourself and be okay with the people who are most important to you, but also on the people that are around you in your own private space. Like, they never get a real shot at having a real connection because you're always having to, like, you know, put on airs and afraid to loosen your tie, so to speak, proverbially speaking.
Right.
But it sounds like that cost or that stress or that falls mainly on pastoral rabbis in order, like, the things that they have to sacrifice.
Everybody,
Like,
I think it's everybody.
but that public and private, I mean, that's most exemplified in the pastoral rabbi, isn't it? Because they have such a broad base to have to appeal to and feel connected to. And by design, they can't discriminate in terms of relationships. It's not. Like the congregation wants to feel like the rabbi is equal friends to everybody, and no human being is like that. But they sort of have to do that. I'm wondering if that's just a lot to ask, and it seems necessary, and I understand why. But it's like we all need the rabbi to take one for the team in that sense.
Well,
of
look
like
at Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah.
Moses. There's no one who was as great as Moshe in that role. The most self-actualized human being who ever lived in our tradition. And it took a
Heard
real
good
toll.
things.
It took a real toll on his family,
Right.
on his kids,
Right.
Yeah.
and a real toll on his marriage, and a real toll on himself also.
Right.
Meaning, like, at the end of the day, he felt like he was hung out to dry.
Right.
Tarchanim him is the way that Rashi's like they're tough. The people, it's tough to be in a congregation when it's not simple. Now it's before, you know, the world of Instagram likes, and before, you know, WhatsApp groups, you know, of disgruntled, you know, congregants. Anybody who's in a position of providing a service for a community, whether you're a teacher or you're a manager of a football team, or, you know, you're playing some kind of your role, you're an elected official, or you're the head of the parent
It's the
board.
political
or
element
it is.
in life.
It's life. It's just called life.
Right.
It's just called life. Meaning, like, there's always this tension between our private selves and what we do professionally. The work-life balance. I mean, everybody has that. It's just when you mix, you know, your relationship with God and your mix meaning and depth and an inner world and the world of the spirit and eternity and all these heavy ideas that are usually very private, which we call beino lebein kono, between a person and their maker. Like, when you start, you know, when that becomes your your skins and furs and spices from the Orient that you're trading for your livelihood. And your family's involved, because like if you're the rabbi, you want to come see my beautiful family and see how my values have been transmitted. So it becomes a heavy price tag on them too,
Right.
and that pressure to present something which is, it's challenging. It's a little bit harder. Like, look, here are my trapezoids. Here are my squares and triangles, because I'm a great calculus teacher. So come take a look at them and look how nicely they dress and act and behave and act. So
But people are able to judge the work as separate from the person in those areas more, and this is much more integrated. I guess that's just the challenge of the job.
yeah, I mean, people still listen to R. Kelly songs, but they're not listening to the shiurim of rabbis who
Actually, that's the intro of this
who've
episode.
fallen from grace.
Right.
You kind of like you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You're like, okay, these pipes are rusty. I'm not drinking this water. Like, even if the product is beautiful and there's creativity and there's beauty there, somehow we want the vessel to match the light that's inside of it.
So at these like rabbi conferences, like big OU conferences where all the rabbis finally get together, is that where they just talk smack about everybody just to like, it has to happen somewhere. Maybe it's the shul president and the rabbi?
No, but in all seriousness, the rabbi of 2022 is very different than it was. The language, the openness, and the post-Brene Brown era that we're living in. There's an openness of people talking about these things and a real sense of working through these things and speaking about them in an open and vulnerable way, which is not, I think, is very new, and to the credit of a lot of the rabbinate today. And I think also a credit, hopefully, to our community, and I'm saying our in a very presumptuous, open way. I think people are a little bit more tolerant and open and understanding of the fact that, like, peoples is peoples, and there's a humanity in this also, and, like, have a little compassion, a little rachmanis, so to speak, a little sensitivity and patience with people who are just, trying to use their abilities and their knowledge and their kochot, their potential, and their, to lead and guide and help. And the more humility that comes with that guidance, I feel like the more people are forgiving or like patient with the service provider, so to speak, the rabbi. It seems like that. And I was like, if you come in there as the one who I have all the answers, and of course people are going to look at you with stink eye. Yeah,
it's definitely a divide between the boomers and like the next generation and how they perceive the whole role. In general of the institution.
Right.
But
you were kind of like when you mentioned that you taught at Frisch when I was in high school, you were like probably the first crop of like cool young rabbi.
No, it's the first crop of young rabbis. That's
of young, and like now they're everywhere.
Yeah,
like schools are lousy with them, right?
Yeah.
Like you saw that whole transformation happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's
like
true.
from 90s to now.
Yeah, from like 2000 when I came into high school to 2022. High school is like so different. The Jewish. Yeah, like the experience of a kid in high school is so different than it used to be.
They're much happier now. I guess that's good. It seems that
like
way.
the schools want them to be happy. It seems
it's a different.
They've taken the day
goal.
camp, the sleepaway camp model, and thrown it into the schools. Of like, if kids can enjoy Jewish communal life in the summer and come back thrilled and proud, why do they have to go to prison for the rest of the year and wait it out?
There's definitely been a shift in that, and when you frame it like that, I think I was also of the first of guys my age. I mean, I got in early, partially because I was willing to forego a full day of Torah study in yeshiva to take a part-time job at Frisch. Meaning, like, somebody went on, I was teaching once a week. I was teaching once a week, just like the technical of it. I was teaching once a week for 45 minutes, just like as a elective. And then a woman went on, Mrs. Finkelstein went on maternity leave. She had to, like, whatever it was, bed rest or something. And they were like, who are we going to find at this point in the year, 2/3 of the way through the year, to cover? And I'm like, pay for gas and tolls. Like, I was happy to miss, to be honest. And I had a great time. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a graduate degree or smicha, rabbinic coordination.
Oh.
But a good rapport with the kids. And I was definitely a stopgap. And
you were like Reb, not Rabbi.
I didn't go with Rabbi. Yeah, I went with Rabbi.
Judah also.
Yeah, I
used your
myself.
first name.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah, very much so.
What's that about that every time you address a rabbi, you have to say rabbi, but they say Judah?
Yeah. No, but I mean it.
You mean it. I mean, you loathe being called that, but like every rabbi, they'll introduce him by the name, and then you just have to know. That's just like a little game.
Yeah. Well, I think
unless you're like a board member, then you can drop a first name and it's a power play. Haskell, how are you?
Really? No, you have to give benefit of the doubt. When a Rav someone goes into the rabbinate. Yeah. I mean, more times than not, they're going for good intentions, to help, to make the world a better place, to teach Torah, to help people. meaning, and people are people, people are people, but to have somebody, consciously choose, woman or man, to choose to serve the community and sign up for that, and be under the microscope and the judgment of it all. There's not type of glory that you might imagine, and the paycheck certainly doesn't pay. And really, it's from ideology and it's from good intention, and.
In LA it does. No, I don't know. But do you think there's guys who are like, I really like learning Torah. I'll become a rabbi. It's like,
sure.
Hey.
No, become an accountant.
Yeah, they forget. And then you start to see this like little internship program of someone who gets up to speak, and he's like, oh, oops.
Right, exactly. No, really, it's but that's then again, you see that changing.
It gets filtered
like
out
you mentioned, that it's changing also. It's changing also. People who are great Talmidei Chachamim don't necessarily make great rabbis. People who are great rabbis aren't necessarily the smartest guy in the room or the most wise guy in the room. It could be someone with an open heart and compassionate, and somebody who, wants to empower others and is complimentary and has a good eye for people and judges favorably, or can host people, make people feel comfortable, and teach. And teach, like the Lubavitch Rebbe said, if you know Aleph, if you know the first letters, then teach Aleph. If you know Bet, teach Bet. If you know B, teach B and A. Like there's such a thing. Not everybody has to be an expert in their field in order to be an impactful guide and mentor and teacher.
Certainly speaks to us.
We've been called out for our lack of authority on anything.
Yeah, we don't know anything about anything, and we talk about it for like almost an hour a week. Yeah.
But that's the point.
Yeah.
I mean, we are reflecting sort of a
I don't know,
proud ignorance about many things, but a curiosity.
Yeah. You gotta start somewhere.
We're curious. We're not authorities.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Was there anything else about Rav Judah's daily routine?
No, I don't know if I got what I was looking for.
What were you looking for?
Dig, Michael, dig.
Are you going to say bad things about rabbis? Because I'm not.
No.
We'll close with that.
No. Yeah, we have a whole round about that.
The naughty list. I want the worst of the
I guess more like more what you do to decompress. Like when you, or I guess like more, is rabbi so part of your identity that when you're on your own, you're thinking to yourself, like, in your own mind, you call yourself Rav Judah, like, or is there
no.
When you're,
I don't. I mean, I've become more self-aware these past few years.
Yeah.
I take time. I mean, one thing I'm very consistent with. I'm not consistent with many things. I'm consistently inconsistent. One thing that I have become quite consistent in is checking myself through conversation with Hashem, speaking directly to God, meaning without an intermediary, without a text, just like direct, straight up talk, and being very honest there. And that honesty there, and also with my wife, with my partner, being honest. I was not for many, many, many years, like most guys, like most people, like.
In what sense were you not honest with yourself?
Meaning, like, just trying to put my best foot forward all the time, and always, keep the pace pumping and up, and and that's not real, but a little bit more open about the struggle and about the hardship and the fear. Fear is a big thing. Speaking about the pachad, fear, and the self-consciousness of, and the doubts and the questions, spiritually speaking and theologically speaking, and, the way you think of things when you're 44 is different than when you think of them when you're 34, you hope, and then different when you're 24. And sometimes that's awesome. Sometimes that's disconcerting. Sometimes that's like, unsettling. So those types of things, like sharing that with Hashem, talking directly, speaking straight up about that, and with partner, like, definitely keeps things more real and more honest, and more grounded to truth. And then from that place, I think that's where real growth and real connection, comes from. Like, so you're trying to strip away a lot of the.
We use Headspace, the app. Same idea.
No, but it's a lot of stripping away of those outsides, of those titles and those accomplishments, and not that it's not meaningful when you get validation to come speak in a big synagogue or a big gig, speaking somewhere, or some coverage somewhere, or somebody quotes an idea or something like that. That's meaningful. That's real to me. That's important. But the more in private place and like the decompression, the more I'm able to like just take it off and strip that down, strip that away. The more you're able to like emerge from that private place comfortable with yourself.
When did that shift? When did you decide to start that process? Or what inspired you
I think I
to?
always wanted that. I don't know, we always all aspire to like get back to. I read Walden. No, I was just reading I was reading that when I was in high school. I couldn't do it. I mean, I liked Fugazi. Like I aspired to just like I wanted to strip it down. Forget this. Screw Ticketmaster. $5 a ticket.
I'm nodding
Fight
about
the-
Fugazi. I don't know what that is, but I'm
No,
nodding.
I'm saying like I was looking to like
I don't know
We
either.
both are like,
I was
no,
like,
what are you
sure.
talking about?
I don't know. I don't know.
What are you
Fugazi
talking
is.
about?
You're gonna have
Serious?
to go. Well, we could nod and pretend like we do know.
Yeah.
And-
Oh, right. Of course.
Whatever was like the non-mainstream pop music of the
Oh.
world, but like a band that was like specifically not putting out their music through major record labels. They stayed independent. They stayed hardcore. Henry Rollins tried to reel it back, to keep it punk, to keep it core.
nice.
So I was aspiring to that,
I'm ashamed.
and reading Walden and Thoreau and trying to be natural and authentic, but it didn't it wasn't possible when you're running around chasing after girls or goals or whatever it is. And as you get a little older and hopefully a little more comfortable, we all want to be more real.
It's funny you mention that now because I just had a memory of a class trip. I guess we were in school together more than I thought because I remember in Toronto
Niagara
we
Falls.
went to and they I don't know if they still do this. They were just like, you guys have 2 hours, do whatever you want. And we went and I was with some friends in like a thrift clothing store or something, and we were looking at like all the 90s band sweatshirts and stuff, and you walked in and you didn't know that we were there, but we saw you looking at like Beastie Boys records and stuff. And I remember now like this thought of like oh, that's who he is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's who that guy is. Like, this is what he likes.
Yeah, I mean,
But, like, I
I
didn't,
listen
you
to
know?
check your. I mean, you can listen to my workout playlist. Exercise is new in my life, also. I mean, aspiration.
Brass monkey.
A little bit later. Everyone, check your head, like a little bit, like But yeah, I don't know, like
Yeah.
bring out that side. I have like a,
Right.
yeah. I mean, it's I think also kind of making peace with yourself and kind of restoring a baseline of where you're comfortable and everything like that. I think that was always aspirational. I think like the older you get, hopefully the more comfortable in your own skin and maybe confident in a marriage and comfortable in a marriage and a relationship and it doesn't mean regressing or that doesn't mean like chucking all of your accomplishments and spiritual. Yeah, but I think like building something which is authentic and real and tethered to the inner world. Even if that is not, the way you thought it was going to look, when you're younger.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael, you asked when it changed in a precise way, if there was a particular... It's a process, it sounds like. But I do want to...
Your 10th grade trip to Niagara Falls.
He walked in, he's like, Beastie
You
Boys.
saw me and went, oh, this is who I
So
am.
what you want?
You held up a record, you're like, I got to fight for my right to party.
I got to do it.
That's it. No sleep till
If
Crown
you
Heights.
remember on that
No sleep
trip,
till Crown Heights.
on that trip also,
You remember it?
of course I remember that trip, very much so.
Yeah.
I have like a love affair with Niagara Falls. Also,
Yeah.
I feel very deeply connected to Niagara Falls. No, but I really.
Sorry for laughing.
No,
That's
it's powerful.
surprising
No,
to hear.
it's powerful.
What?
I had a blast
Nature?
also. I had
Yeah.
a blast. I remember we like I remember saying like for the program we let everybody or encourage everybody to go by themselves, go take a walk around Niagara Falls and have a few moments by yourself.
Yeah.
And I said like experience, feel what you're
Yeah, I
feeling.
remember that.
Feel what you're feeling. Just process, come in contact with this experience. I remember people like, what?
I have a feeling you saw Michael in a mirror looking at records, and then he walked away, and you were like,
And
he's
here we
going to be
are.
okay.
And here we are.
But I do want to shift into this area because there's a fascinating like part of like chapter in your career, the gap year in general, where I do
Yeah.
feel like
Are we just talking about me this whole time?
Yeah, what else were we talking
I
about?
don't know.
we can talk about other things.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah,
you
you
can,
can-
you can
yeah,
throw questions at us.
yeah,
But
there's
I'm
anything
so
to talk
curious
about.
about this.
Talk about cool stuff. I don't know.
This is
Well,
going to be cool.
this is the type of stuff we're interested in.
Yeah.
Not
Sorry.
the rabbi
Anybody
stuff.
else? I
Maybe
don't know if
went a
there's anybody
little
out there. Okay.
deep.
I was gonna
Doesn't
just ask
matter.
because you were saying, was there a time because you spend time in this like gap year, which is what in the religious Orthodox world that we come from after high school, we go for a year to Israel to find ourselves.
10.0 on the Jewy scale right now.
Of 100%, but this is a. I'm not gonna hide from who we are.
Red Sarachek tournament coming up.
But you're no, that's I checked out before that happened. But the year in Israel where Jews go to find themselves and you spent all this time sort of mentoring students, did you feel like you had to hold yourself to some standard in which you had your life together in order to make other kids feel stable? for such a long time.
good
Like
question.
we all perceive the administration and the faculty that way. They're the people who are going to be our rocks and our guiding
I don't know
lights.
that anybody
you know.
saw me like that.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, for sure.
Of course.
For
You go and you're
sure.
like, and like if the rabbi is like sort of, or the teacher or whatever is bestowing stability upon you as if like you got it together or like you need to work on this. Like it's scary because it's a very powerful and dangerous dynamic in some way.
Yeah.
You have all these impressionable kids, and I saw a lot of kids go through it and come out fine, but also alter the trajectory of their life in ways because they think that by 18 they're adults and they're making decisions. I have to like have it figured out. And what you just alluded to before was it takes a long time to figure things out, and you're constantly doing it, even as an adult. But you don't realize that when you're an 18-year-old going to Israel to find yourself.
Right. No, the year in Israel for the modern Orthodox or centrist Orthodox Jewish community, the gap year, is the single most impressionable and powerful experience that a young person can, and it's changed the trajectory of the community in terms of Torah observance and seriousness about Yiddishkeit, about Jewish practice and Jewish life. And it's an amazing and extraordinary thing. And like everything has a price tag along with it also. I mean, like there's always that comes along with it. And for me, it was the greatest experience. I mean, we had 10 years and loved teaching Torah. And I loved teaching Torah there and in that context. And the relationships that we formed there were so meaningful. And the chevra and the community and the guys. And it was really, it was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, really amazing. And I think
this hat is from an old racial, you had former students who brought you out to LA for an event where this hat was given out. That was that. That's what all that just meant.
No, some of all the most impactful relationships we have in our life are from there. And still, it was real. And I think like at a certain point there was a lot of pressure, on me. I mean, I'm not making it about myself, but I think like I skipped steps and definitely have been honest about this in a way that I think is sometimes jarring for people. Others people it's validating for. Yeah. But yeah, there was definitely a pressure, and I don't know that we handled it well or didn't handle it well. Yeah. We certainly meant well and certainly tried our best. And my wife is an extraordinary person. And we hosted a lot of people and we learned a lot of Torah and grew a lot with people and made mistakes along the way and had a lot of learning curve along the way. But definitely I think emerged from that, with a lot more a sense of self, but stepping into a role at age 22 to be a teacher, and then age 24 of being a yeshiva Rebbe, even if it was like, the second tier, an adjunct, an afternoon share, or a associate professor, in the night share, whatever it may be, definitely created a pressure, which I don't know that it was all bad. I mean, it definitely definitely forced us or me into like a certain role of like, maintaining a certain standard. And, and then you kind of turn around and assess your life, and that's appropriate to assess and reassess and say, hey, that was really great and beautiful and awesome. And maybe there's other ways that I could use my abilities or make a go at it in life. I don't know if you have some nursing home or something like that for me to get involved in. I don't know.
You didn't sell out. You bought in.
Oh yeah. No, I'm saying like I don't know what's coming and what's next. No one really does. If a person's really honest and open and a traveler and feels that this world is an unfolding journey and narrative, so like then you're open to whatever the Ribbon Shalom, whatever the master of the world is going to, however he directs our lives, and we want to use it for good and we want to use it to help people. And
any cynicism at all from it? Because you can have some.
I mean, yeah, you can be cynical about everything.
Right.
Be cynical about.
You're very optimistic in general.
There's
about
nothing you can't be cynical about. I mean, I have that. I'll call it a gravitational pull, a Yetzer Hara, like an oppositional force within me to be cynical about just about everything.
As you get distant from an experience or whatever, you can look back on it and kind of be with more self-awareness of. Did you find that the way you interacted with everybody was more representative of the culture of the whole, or was it more that you were doing it in a way that you felt was as best of your ability, but there's also a lot of pitfalls to watch out for?
It was definitely like this. I worked with my wife's family, and that comes with its own set of opportunities and its own sets of challenges, just like any family working together in any modality, in any rubric, in any, setting, corporate, or let's call it academic or an yeshiva. Meaning, there's always that. Everybody, that's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that. That's just called So that's definitely part of the narrative. I think also, if there's room if there was bitterness or cynicism about the experience, it was only because of my own lackings. It was only because I didn't. That wasn't my dream necessarily to be the Year in Israel Rebbe. So a lot of people who are the Year in Israel Rebbe, that was their dream, and they're living that dream, and they're doing that with great passion and great, fervor and excitement. Well, in that framework. And if I didn't feel comfortable in that framework anymore because I didn't feel comfortable with myself, that's not their fault or the system's fault. That was just where I was at. So thank God I have my wife and I had the ability to say, I think we're going to try something else now, as opposed to remaining, I don't want to say stuck, because it was such an amazing thing. I loved it. I loved the opportunity. I loved what it was. And then our kids were getting older, and we were getting older, and it was okay, what else? I don't, but I don't think that that if there was something for me to point out about the system, trademark, or about the yeshivas or the rabbeim or the rabbis of that framework, it wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be appropriate, because they're doing. It is being done the way it is being done, and it's being done beautifully well, by and large, by so many different people.
I tried to crash there at the school you taught once, and I was turned away at the door. So I hold a little bit of a grudge.
Do you ever encounter people who knew you from that time, and they look at you with like they look, and you're just I can't explain to you right now, but I am a different person than I used to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
There are people who are stuck in that.
Right.
That makes sense. Many people are like that.
Yeah.
And they see me and feel disappointed.
Name drop. No.
Sometimes feel disappointed, or sometimes we didn't have a great experience together. We kind of crossed paths under unfortunate. I had different roles also. I had different roles in camp. I mean, now that I've been in Camp HASC, which is just the most beautiful and wonderful place, I also play an administrative role. And sometimes you got to be bad cop, and sometimes you have interactions which aren't wonderful, that are a little salty, and not everybody's so thrilled that, hey, the Rav Judah show is coming to town. And there are plenty of people who are not thrilled about that, or don't look at that or me in in the most complimentary or favorable way. And I guess that's part of life, and you try to be gentle and kind with people, but I wasn't always. I was pretty off the rails at certain times, and pretty extreme and pretty wild, and play fast and loose. And often it was positive and grit, and sometimes it didn't come off that way. And sometimes I see people from different points in life, and I guess I try to own that, and they try to just say, hey, nice to meet you again. I'm not 26 and you're not 18.
Right.
Maybe we can, and yes, no, maybe so, and that's part of growing up, and that's how it goes, and so it goes. But definitely get that. I definitely get that. What happened? You used to be, or what? Or you were, and I remember, and okay, I can't necessarily play that. That was a different Netflix series.
Right.
We're on to another things have changed since then. So sometimes it's disappointing for people.
I just hung out with a friend who because I know you now, and he hasn't known you since back in the day, and he was like I was so angry at him for so many years.
Wow.
And I was like,
should we bring him out? He's here.
No, and then he said you guys met up, and he said he just melted away. He's like I have no idea why I was angry, but I just was.
Well, at that
but
time,
I was like, oh, I wonder how you felt, because that sucks for you also to have to be that thing in someone's mind.
Well, yeah. Well, so that's again going back to the rabbi thing. Sometimes you're meant to be, or someone makes this construct of what they imagine it's supposed to be, whether it's a relationship, or they want access, or if you're popular or have a little charisma, right? If I was they wanted someone didn't get invited, or didn't make it to the inner circle, or what they perceived to be the inner circle, or I didn't come to their wedding, or whatever it was, or they or somehow didn't end up where I was, and with no intention or nothing, and you're 18, and that's very important to you.
It means everything.
It means everything to you, and then you can't necessarily put your finger on it, but you're just pissed off for years about it, and you feel this wound, and you're over what, or you're mad at the yeshiva because of I don't know what, because they called me out for going to college, secular college, or he said something in a parsha class that took personally, And at that time and place, maybe it made sense. And then like, kind of like you move on, but not everybody necessarily moves on. You know, like,
Well,
you're
coming from a world that when you're 18, like time has such emotional weight because every year is measured and you only get one freshman year, one sophomore year, one junior, senior, 1 year in Israel. And then like everything is measured by that. So if you're not like winning or or feel like you're maximizing the experience at a particular point, as opposed to adulthood where you're just kind of in a wash and you'll go through like ups and downs, but you don't feel this sense of urgency or temporariness to it. Yeah. And if you feel like you're missing out at a particular time, it kills you. It's like a crushing feeling.
Yeah, also, I said dumb stuff. I mean, I'm sure I said, you know, I'm sure I said, like, you know, it's like imagine just talking and talking and talking and talking. Like, I'm sure I said things which are hurtful. Right. I mean, I'm trying, you know, like I try to be thoughtful, but I don't always speak so wholeheartedly and with depth and thought. Sometimes just like say stupid stuff, like you're hungry or tired or you gotta go to the bathroom. I don't know, whatever. Or like person didn't catch me.
I have that. People see me from high school sometimes and are like still pissed off at me for some reason. Like I can't imagine if I I wasn't like the nicest guy all the time. But like imagine if I like dealt with thousands of kids like professionally. Yeah. Like it bothers me.
Who looked to you for some kind of validation or guidance and you said the wrong thing.
Said the wrong thing or blew them off or missed a WhatsApp. Like I miss WhatsApps. I drop balls. I get emails and people. No, I do. People.
WhatsApp is fair. It's just freaking.
Now
it's
that
a news feed.
But it means everything to someone who needs your
reached out.
guidance.
I just didn't get back to them, or I got back too late, or I was in town and I didn't reach out. And I'm like, I have 8 kids. Like, what do you want? Like,
8 kids. 8 kids.
No, like I'm like I can't keep myself together. Like I trying to learn daf yomi. I'm trying to. I'm 40, almost 45 years old. Still bite my fingernails. Like I got stuff going on. I'm trying to work on things. Like, you know,
Michael likes seeing people at their weakest.
And I want to call my grandmother before Shabbos. You know what I'm saying? And I want to try to exercise. And there's somebody who called me 3 times that I haven't gotten back. Like, and somebody takes that personally and is hurt by that. And I feel I carry that around. Yeah. I carry that around, and I'm not a congregational rabbi, and I'm not.
So who cares?
Sure, it hurt, but I take it to heart, and you try to be, you know. So I'm like trying to be forgiving of myself, and I'm trying to be, you know, humble, and it doesn't always go. It doesn't always go.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah, this world is a lot.
I worked at the Apple Store for 3 weeks, and in the training for working at the Apple Store, they teach you all this stuff. If it felt like a waste of time, I ended up only working there 3 weeks. I was like, let me try a couple different things. I was trying to like train in their music software, whatever. But in the training, which was like a month long for a retail store, one of the lessons learned that I guess it was made it all worth it was they said whenever you're in confrontation with anybody or you have an issue with somebody, always assume positive intent. Always. In other words, always assume that there's a legitimate or good reason why you know they've done something that you perceive as negative, so that you know if somebody comes late to something, assume positive intent. Assume something was going on that made them late. Maybe they had something going on, and open with that. It was a way to kind of how they manage, you know, structurally, like employees and if people have issues with each other, like everything going on, everything okay. You're approaching empathetically, and that was like just one thing that almost made the whole thing worth it because it changed the way I approach everything. Because I always would take things personally. Maybe not always, but I would think that in order to be respected, I had to interpret someone's actions towards me as maybe a personal affront, and I had to stick up for myself, so I had to confront it or say something as a naturally non-confrontational person. But when you assume positive intent, then other people's actions are not seen as affronts to you. It's them, you know? So all these things, when you miss a WhatsApp, it's like if they are getting personally offended by it, then they have an issue.
Yeah. Well, Tim Ferriss has something that might be more helpful, specifically with WhatsApp. Not positive intent, but he says never assume intention, assume ineptitude. Like if someone doesn't answer an email, it's probably because they forgot.
Yeah,
it's probably not because they're even thinking about you.
Right.
We're all telling ourselves stories.
Yeah,
that like
right. And you have emails that people aren't getting back to you from, and WhatsApps people aren't answering from you.
Yeah, and what you mentioned here, like, is my I know. This is putting yourself out there to be a helper, trying to an aspirational helper, and you know, guide. I don't know, whatever, you know. You open yourself up to hurting people. You know, helping people also means you're hurting people. It also means that you're guiding them in a way toward light, but also could be toward a way which is not intended for them. and that can be very painful.
Right. And they're putting like 25-year-olds in charge of this. Like the schools are and the yeshivas are. Like things are gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like in the what were we talking about before? Like, I was thinking of this idea of like the positive and the negative. It goes like this. So like as you go higher and higher, there's like the capacity to go to hurt is
that's the way God
is-
created the
is
world.
deeper. Yeah,
That's the way the world is created. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's the same in any relationship. The deeper the love, the more potential there is there for betrayal and pain. Without that risk, then there's no real reward. Without that choice, without that, and that can be paralyzing.
the depth. It's depth. As depth means you're like ascending and you're further from
Yeah,
the
it's a
ground, so
real
you're
thing.
in more danger.
Right.
Yeah, when you get Torah involved and God involved and the Spirit involved and the world of, the light of the righteous, when you tapping into something which is infinite, so it can get heavy. It could be heavy.
And a lot of people don't talk about it. Like a lot of these kids are annoying.
Yes.
Also, right?
Yes. Age appropriate.
Name drop. Okay,
Oh, it's age appropriate. It's age appropriate.
we're still talking about like
I
18-year-olds
was
like
just
trying
joking,
to
I
looking
don't
for
know.
guidance in the year.
I don't know, I was just
or just
joking.
anyone trying to be in touch with you.
It's true. And there's an occupational hazard of being a spiritual guide is being arrogant and self-assured
Yeah.
and looking over your shoulder to see how long your Shemona Esrei, your private prayer is, making sure that it's long enough that other people are seeing you as having a long enough prayer, and all that inauthenticity or that that the showiness is an occupational hazard of being in that modeling role of what a religious person or a godly person or an ethical person or an elevated person is. Not simple.
Do you think the bubble of that world and the people that exist in it for so long, because we went through it 18 and by 19 we're out of it, but when I've gone back to visit and stuff, you kind of see like there is a lure of feeling, when you're perceived as, on the administration side or the faculty side, you're elevated constantly and looked up
Matthew
to.
McConaughey said, we keep getting older and
They stay the same age.
but that's what it is. Like you become an.
I'm really trying to avoid creepy. No, I just mean
another
you're
18-year-olds who can't read Talmud, and you just get older and they just get like Dumb and Dumber. Pardon me, and you're like you feel this artificial sense of like knowledge and this artificial sense
You know
of
the
elevation.
answers.
Is there a lure there? Do you think that keeps people there, and that they come out of that world into like the real world, and it's like, oh, here I'm just a Joe Schmo, but there I'm looked up to.
Sure,
there's got to be a lure.
Of course,
Of
course, there's an ecosystem of that also. Absolutely.
See, I miss out on it because I've gone the other way of like I'm like anti-hero worship, not anti-hero worship, but like I don't have mentors specifically because I think I'm afraid to be let down by them. So like I miss out on all the guidance, but then I avoid all the hurt from it.
Always been like that.
I think since like my camp days, like having like experience with like counselors and stuff, I very much went into yeshiva being like I'm not here to find like a teacher, like I'm gonna do my own thing and like, but then you miss out on all the good stuff also.
Right.
But you've also, I mean, if I be presumptuous, but you've also cultivated a very strong network of friends.
True.
Of
True.
Chevra,
True. Maybe that's why.
And there's mentorship, which is, which is also
For sure.
Oh, Michael's always much more
Lateral.
trusting of peers than authority.
I mean,
much more.
I'm not trusting with authority.
Oh, you're trusing of peers.
Of peers,
but
of peers,
quite
yeah.
the flip side.
Yeah.
Your friend's advice means a lot to you.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
Meaning the Venn diagram of our crossover is a lot of like is chevra, something that I'm jealous of or that I've always been enamored by. Of your extended network is just how beautiful it is that guys get together like that, and there's like this almost we're figuring this out together, and I find that to be very meaningful.
You don't
and
feel like
beautiful.
you have that? 'Cause I would think you have.
I did not have that. I'm beginning to cultivate that now, but that I did not have that. Part of the price tag of being in that role, it was what friends we have. We had 18-year-olds over at our house every single, weekend. There was no space. There was no space for collegial kind of fraternal peer interaction. A lot of friends.
Friendlies.
Yeah, I mean, I have a million friendlies, but there wasn't the opportunity to like really spend time talking to friends. It was always about the guys or about the, where we're up to in the program, in the yeshiva. And on one hand, that's very powerful and very beautiful and shows a lot of commitment. On the other hand, you're missing out on that other modality, that other opportunity to develop and cultivate relationships, which kind of can keep you in more honest check.
More on an
Friends
equal,
can call your
developmentally
BS.
equal.
Your friends are going to call you out.
Yeah.
Your friends can call you dude, or whatever. However,
They're going to call you Judah.
Yeah, or like, what are you doing? Or
Right.
And
They'll make fun of you. It's
reintroduced
good.
that more formally in my life, and have run away from peers and friends who continuously push product. Like I wrote a book, and like so that also pushed my public persona forward in a certain way. And you're on these podcasts, and people look at,
We forgot the book. We forgot the book.
Yeah, these podcasts or whatever, like, and it wasn't like people like, but like specifically resisting that because it's just not true. It's not real. Here's something I had to share.
Right. Yeah.
Here's an idea. Here's something I wanted to put into the world.
The book is called what and can be bought where?
No, but it was specifically written in a way which which was trying to be honest about where I'm saying like, here's what's happening together. Here's something I'm just sharing my own experiences, some thoughts and ideas. Because I think like craving was craving that.
No agenda. It's just you, like
craving. Yeah, so I'm saying maybe you don't have that Rebbe mentor, top down figure, but the similar effect is of friends who are pushing the agenda forward.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, and I was very lost, I think, until I found a friend who was like this. Like we're doing something like that. We're getting together once a week, and I was also skeptical of that. But really, like the moment I sat down,
that's
nice.
You found a friend.
What are you talking about?
What you
until
said
I
you were
found
lost
you?
until you.
Yeah, like living on the Upper West Side, and then our mutual friend Isaac was like, we're doing this thing
You're
called
welcome.
University of Purim, and and no, it really I don't think about it that way, but it really kind of was life changing.
Toward the conscious goal of growth.
You're talking about Upper West Side.
Among friends who can
thought you were talking
also
about Buckle Up, but
make
that's
fun
fine.
of you, and also you can also be honest with them and all that. Like,
and toward the ultimate goal of growing.
Yeah.
Meaning, even if that's not stated, meaning we're not just sitting here, sitting around being stupid. We're not sitting here like
having friends when you're married too is also really, really beneficial. Like when you're married and having other friends, nothing like kills the tension of nothing kills a fight than like going to hang out with a bunch of friends and then you're home and it's like I always like there's times when like you have to when the leaving the house is one vibe. I say nothing until after the hang, and then you can just then it's gone.
Yeah, I'll be in such a bad mood sometimes, and then a friend calls, and then with my wife, and then by the end of the call, I'm like in a great mood, and she's like even more mad at me for having gotten into a better mood through the call.
That doesn't help, Mike. I'm talking about together. Sometimes also the stress of having to get somewhere. You're late. It's all these things, and then after a hang, it's like all that unnecessary stuff is gone. And that I've always noticed is helpful. We've joked about like you have guests over so you can cover up your marital issues, right? You can pretend like nothing's wrong. Hi, come on in. But on a serious note, it's helpful to have to develop those relationships too. Yeah, that can help.
It's funny. We're like at a different stage where that's not happening. We're not. It's hard.
Marital
enough
bliss
to get
8 kids. Marital bliss.
No, we circled the wagons a little bit in the last number of years. And
what does that mean?
And it means that like we kind of.
Do you know what that means?
That means on Shabbos.
No.
Like Shabbos is a time where it's really just us, where it's really just our family, because we have 4 kids who are over high school age already. We're in high school and above. And to get everybody on the same page in the same Shabbat.
You have a company, not a family.
Well, it's just like
small business.
People are busy.
LLC.
Our kids are people. Like they have things. They have friends. They have jobs and they have school and they have schedules and activities and things. So like to get everybody together, like to introduce friends and outsiders, so to speak, into our inside zone, it kind of it takes away the inability for us to be really natural and just together and strengthen those bonds of us and together.
Right.
So we've really curbed that over the last number of years. We barely have company anymore at this point. We barely have friends.
Well, you have 8 kids now. Yeah. Well, 8 is going to do that. That's going to.
It's not the number.
Yeah,
it's the conscious saying like we're going to invest our time and our awake hours here on Shabbos
into the cohesion of
or I'm like on a Thursday night, like to go out, like we went out, like my wife and I went out this week, and the week before that we went out with our whole family, and the year before that I went out to drinks with my older daughters, meaning like I went out with my daughter for lunch as opposed to getting together with friends, meaning there's it's a new stage where we're like choosing to invest in those relationships.
But when your first 4 were little,
we had boys over. We had Reshiva
there
guys.
You go. Distractions.
Yeah, all day.
Okay, so you were there. I get it.
All
because we talk
all day.
We talk about the stresses of young kids, and
Oh
you
my
seem to be
God.
like a pretty phenomenal father. Your kids seem pretty close with you. I guess that's the only
I hope so.
gauge.
I hope so. I think we love spending time together.
Yeah.
We do. I mean, we have our things.
How do the youngest? How old's the youngest?
Our
kid?
little, he's 5.
It's 5. To what extent is the second 4 different experience?
2.0. Oh, totally. It's our second act. We
The
always
second
say,
round
we're
of
getting it
kids in
right
the
this
first
time.
round.
I say it all the time. Like, okay, we're doing this right.
So what's doing it right?
To young fathers.
Again, it's like, to go back. This is not about an indictment on the system. It's just me. I think we're older also.
Yeah.
So
it's like whatever.
More consciously investing our best selves into our home as opposed to like putting out, so to speak, for others. And instead of presenting an experience to others, we're just actually doing it internally. And I consciously and constantly find myself like having these flashbacks to, like, especially around holidays. Shabbos is for sure, but holidays and times of the year where, like, okay, sukkah building, there's always guys coming to our sukkah. We had 20 people sleeping over in our sukkah. Now it's like the last few years, it's just me and my wife and our kids doing that, building and creating that space and cultivating that experience together, as opposed to it being something which was,
You basically live in a seminary, though.
yeah, no, but like,
You have 7 daughters and
it's
1
not a
son.
joke. Yeah, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. I say it all the time. Sometimes I joke with them, and I'm like,
Is
"Do you
it
have
7
any
girls
idea
and
how
1
much I get paid to tell this story? Could you just listen to this?
7 girls, 1
This
boy?
is so good.
Or 2
You
boys?
understand that this is going to be the drasha in New Rochelle? You know, people, do you understand?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm taking this on the road. Do
Well,
you
that's
wanna
where you
hear-
get your humility from. When the
No.
kids check you, it's
Oh
always
my
it's the
God,
best.
all day.
Yeah,
They don't.
that's the best.
But that's the most beautiful thing. I once had the opportunity to sit with Rabbi Feinstein, she's like one of the great teachers and halachic decisors of post generation, and the son of the greatest. The son of Rav Moshe Feinstein, the greatest in the generation. And it was at my in-laws' house. He used to come every year for Shabbos, and I was newly married. I was there. I think I've shared this before. And I was all excited. I had like a list of questions. I was 22, newly married. It's so cool. I get to be there. It ended up the best parts of the Shabbos were like schmoozing with his wife in the kitchen, like just
Right.
getting her off record, just like her riffing in the kitchen. I hate tell
this
my
life.
wife, I tell my wife like,
Save me.
oh, you're teaching special ed? Don't teach in yeshivas. Don't teach. Work in the public
what
schools.
I wanna
Better
hear
benefits.
that.
Better benefits. The public school. Don't they? They're gonna make you crazy if you work in yeshivas. Whatever. God rest her soul. She was a righteous woman. And it was. So I asked him, like, I started like throwing questions, like, right before benching time, like, dessert was on the table and it was a little bit more chill, and I started like throwing questions, and he had this big smile, Reuven, and he said to me, you're speaking about the Gadol Hador, you're talking about the Posek Hador. He was my father. Like he was almost like he was my dad. He was my Abba. He was my tati. He was like first things first. Like before he was my Rebbe, he was my father. So like he related to him, and he was related to as a child, as a son, and then he learned from him as he got older in terms of like the more frontal learning, and that's I don't want to say like I chose that. That's like that's what's happening. It's like I'm not the rabbi of my children. Like we're actively encouraging them to go find their own sources of inspiration and let our house be our house. Let it be comfortable. Let it be a positive place, but let it not be a place that's like loaded with too many religious expectations.
You told a story that I actually think to myself that I find comforting for myself sometimes, where your daughter came home and was like, I don't know, did she call you Tati?
No.
Or like,
Abba.
but like, did you hear about this
Abba.
sefer, the Nesivo Shalom, which is like a
The
like
Netivot
a-
Shalom.
Netivot Shalom, yeah, and like it's like a pretty like classic Hasidic text, and you're like, which house did you grow up in?
Where have you been? I'm like, hello, we have 2 sets of it. I came into this marriage, and Ima did with a full set.
Wait, she knew it too well, or
No, like she hadn't heard anything
She
you
heard
said
like her
for
teacher.
18 years.
Her teacher
and
mentioned it. I'm like, hello.
Yeah.
hello.
Like she heard-
I know him. I was
right.
there.
I've been talking about
I
this
met
forever.
him.
Right,
That goes
I
with
met
the-
him.
the
I have
father filter.
I met him. I have all of those. I have all of this farm. Look, they're underlined in every single page. I
I feel like if my daughter comes
Hello.
have you ever heard of the bass?
It's like- no, but that was telling to me.
Yeah,
That was
I love
telling,
that.
and it's kind of cool. Also, like there's definitely a place where we share and we talk ideas, but also consciously, and it's not easy, trying to hold back and allow them to find their own their own place in the community and their own place with Hashem. And it's not easy. It's very, very challenging.
What about
but-
dad rage? Has that subsided over the years? We all have it a little bit.
Oh, Vadai, of course.
Yeah. So-
I'm the king. I'm, like,
Dad
I'm the
rage.
most pressure. I'm the most.
But with older
overwhel-
kids too, it's got to be in check. Like you can't do that anymore.
I take my stender. I have like a lectern. I bring it to the middle of the table. I bang on it. I say, okay, here comes the TED Talk.
But when
Here
there's
I
a
go.
range of ages in that level, it's different too. Like dad rage. Your kids are small. Your kids are too small for dad
It's
rage.
real.
Dad rage will happen.
Thankfully, yeah.
It's real, but often that just happens either because they're living some trauma from our past, or it's because some crazy an unfair expectation of what I imagine it ought to be, which has nothing to do with reality of where my life actually is. That disconnect, like that pressure point happens there, and it's ridiculous.
But when you summon it to teach a lesson, that's like one thing. If like you're trying to teach a certain element of respect or development, but when you're doing it because you're stressed about other things, and they're just that's when I feel real. That's when I feel bad about
That's
that
my
rage.
world.
Yeah.
So I have my Rebbe, like, once said years ago, he's just like, it was the couple days before, it was like 2 days before Sukkot, which is right after the high holidays, right after Yom Kippur, everyone's starting fresh. It's supposed to be this like new, beautiful, fresh, snowy white, tabula rasa, you come in there. And it's the time, it's called the Festival of Joy.
Yeah.
Zman Sukkot is like the happiest time. And there's so much preparation and building and kids and little, everybody's, it's beautiful. And it's just like, I don't know, you're like a volcano, it's going to erupt for no reason. So he's just like, come into your house. He always says this before holidays, come in and just make an announcement. Abba, dad is under pressure right now. Abba lachutz. I'm gonna today something's gonna happen. I'm gonna snap at somebody. It has nothing to do with you. It's because I'm crazy. I'm crazy, not you. It's just know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna sound like a lunatic, and just nothing to do with you. Just know it has nothing to do with you. If you see it happening, just like. Get me something to eat. Get me a cold drink. Turn on the air conditioning. Whatever. Just smile. Sit there. Listen to me. Smile at me. I'll catch myself at a certain point. We're both gonna look at each other. I'll apologize and we'll move on. Just know that it's gonna happen, and it really has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And it happens. And it's sweetened almost.
It becomes a
it's
funny
not-
thing.
Dad's gonna blow.
Yeah. No, but just
The mom rage we just accept as a
Same.
default.
recognizing it, being aware of it. You get the awareness of it, create that presence and the presence of mind, and almost not judging it, which is the core of mindfulness. It's just like
What happened, Michael? You don't wake
saying
these-
it.
Yesterday, I set this trap for flies, with kind of poison in it on a shelf, specifically
Yes.
so my daughter couldn't find it. And I come in 2 minutes later and she's drinking from the trap.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was poison.
But that's
in
not
the end.
ragey. She's so how old is your daughter?
Well,
She's
I get
4.
mad at myself,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, of
then
course.
I wanna yell at her. I know I didn't say anything, but I got
But it's when they
I got
have
worked
a
up.
they have a way, like the closer that they are to you, like you said, like the deeper, like a kid can just get right to it. So
And also
in ways I don't have a temper, but they can just find the button right away.
and
and do
there's
it.
buttons you don't even know
Yeah.
that we have
Yeah.
that they can press. No, thank God I have that with my kids, and I went out to lunch 2 days ago with our oldest daughter and said that to her. I said, sometimes when we have those moments, it's because you know how to push a button in me that makes me uncomfortable about myself and points out to me where I'm really lacking.
She's a teenage girl, and you're crazy.
She's 21.
Oh, she's 21.
Yeah, and we talk,
Yeah.
and it's open, and we get upset sometimes at our kids, whatever age they are, because we want to help them or save them or protect them, and we don't know how to or not able to, and that frustration at our inability
Yeah.
to allow that to happen, it comes out and lashes out. And the more open we can be about it, and our own again, the same thing
Yeah.
as being around. The more open and humble we can be about it, sometimes the less painful it is.
That way of talking, I think, is something. I know you didn't invent it, but there's there are people you can listen to and be like they're doing their Rav Judah voice, like that attitude of it comes from us, and it to be aware of it, and that whole mindset. I know you didn't invent it, but I think it's really cascaded from you down into onto so many people. It's a really I think I just changed the subject dramatically, but I guess I just wanted to say that. No, it's a beautiful thing. That mindset is so awesome. And I feel like you've given it to
A lot of people.
lot of
Is it?
people.
Are you talking about
no,
the,
me included.
the ability to be self-aware and humble, but also what? What are
I
you
don't know,
talking about?
that thing when I said I'm mad at myself.
Yeah.
I realized when I said that I'm mimicking you, who a friend of mine mimics, and I'm mimicking him.
Oh.
I don't know. Are you aware of that?
Mimicking myself.
Yeah.
Also.
It's nice to hear also that you've feel like you're like drawing more attention to your younger children? I feel like as you have more and more kids, it's like you start to just be like, yeah, I have to consciously work against this impulse to let them be, because not only are you not giving as much attention because there's all these other siblings in between you and your younger children who are now like filling that role. Like when your first kid, it's like, the first child is all the attention, and the second one is split, and then it keeps getting divided, the parents' attention. And in a good way, like, the youngest of a lot of kids is autonomous and figures things out. But you don't want to lose touch. They do raise themselves, and like you have senior staff. I mean, a lot of daughters up front heavy on the daughters.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
But you have to work against that impulse to make sure you're cultivating the same deeper relationships with younger kids as with older kids.
What's beautiful is, first of all, Michael, thank you. That was very generous of you.
It
was very generous of you. No, it was very generous of you. I mean, it was very generous of you. I don't know if it's true, but
does it make you uncomfortable to hear that?
I mean, not uncomfortable. I just like, I don't know if it's true. It made me think about it. No, but it's a beautiful thing to say. It was a milah tova. It was a good word.
Okay,
I don't know. I mean,
is it just pure introspection? Is that what you're talking about?
It's aspirational. It's aspirational.
No, it's an attitude that I think is very helpful, and that I think didn't exist in like the way we talk, like whatever the modern Orthodox like world of just like going easy on yourself. Like being introspective and and just like just
I hear both. I hear a lot of things in it. There's like there's an attitude of accountability, but also not to being judging too harshly, and the balance between the two. Like you're not blaming anybody else.
You know what? It's health. It's health to be like, I want to be a healthy person,
right?
And take life. And I mean, life is serious.
Yeah.
But we can't take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot. Like, whatever. We're all kind of like a
it's heavy,
snowball.
but it's light.
No, it's the same thing with what's called being stringent in Jewish law, meaning to be serious about it for oneself, but to be more open and more forgiving of the people around us.
To be serious about joy, to be serious about all these things.
Correct,
take even the light things seriously. It's it's an interesting.
But I don't know. I know that we're all kind of like a result also of our surroundings, and we're all kind of hearing from and learning from each other, and there's definitely that openness. You mentioned the little kids there's something about little
we'll cut it together.
Something about little kids. Something about the little kids that awakens something so pure and sweet and good, and it's almost like I don't know. I mean, I don't know how, I experienced little kids as a 23-year-old and as a 26-year-old and as a 28-year-old and a 32-year-old. And now I'm experiencing these little guys as a person with a little bit more chokhmat chaim, a little bit more experience in life. It's a whole different experience.
You're basically their grandfather and their father.
I happened to be twice this summer.
Right.
I took my little guy Avram to Rita's, and I'm sitting there in Rita's with him, whatever, and Nachi and Esther are twins who are in second grade, and a guy
Do you have uncles of the kids younger than the kids?
And a guy said, wait, no, a guy says to me, one second, a guy says to me, and I'm sitting there, he's like, so geschmack to spend some by the 8 o'clock, no? It's so sweet.
They confused you as the grandfather.
Yeah.
You don't look particularly old.
I mean, I don't know. I got great, whatever. But I had this
a
little
lot of people did that.
But so nice to be with a young grandfather.
No, but I was because I was horsing around with them, and I was being joyful and fun with them, and like spoiling them, and like hanging
this guy
out.
is so impressive.
What a Zayda. I mean, there's something about little kids that brings out something very pure.
Yeah.
I'm like, so geschmack. It's so good. It's so sweet. I don't know. There's something youthful. I feel like I'm better at it now. We're better. My wife and I are better together now. Like we've grown together.
Yeah.
It's a good. I don't think it's an indictment of our younger selves to say like we're better at this now.
Yeah.
Right. Even though there's more divided mind and more divided time, and it's true. Yeah. Like we talk about that a lot in our house. Like the focus, the hyper focus, and now like kind of like juggling a lot more, but. I think we're able to like be more focused and more real and more there and enjoy in a different way. And also like you go through life and you experience loss and experience frustration and growth and appreciation and you appreciate time and life in a totally different way. Doing stuff with our younger kids I never did with our older kids. Maybe less. I don't know, less time, more time, but like definitely different time. Definitely different way of being with them.
Jordan Peterson said something about like, and I'm not going to imitate him. Maybe no.
Why not?
No, but he said something about like what do you appreciate. He was interviewing maybe his father or something personal, and he had been ill for like a year, but he said that he has a lot A lot more appreciation now for an ordinary day. A lot of people don't get that. Like an ordinary day.
No, he also
has so much more.
Yeah,
like
he also pointed out that like your kid, when a kid's 4 years old, 5 years old, like that's it. You have one shot at
you got 4 years, man. That's it. Then it's
about that
over.
all the time. Yeah,
You're
screwed.
To make them into a good person. Right?
Yeah, those first 4 years,
Yeah.
you can't get that back. And I actually, I mean, it's a good sidestep into this maybe more controversial societal conversation about how, like, we're talking about the joy of having kids and really appreciating that and not taking it for granted. And I'm just noticing in, like, the public debate now, there is this weird moment happening in, like, sort of, you had years of, like, a feminist ideology of, not being focused on family and children, particularly geared at women. But now you're seeing all these conversations I just see between even women amongst themselves arguing about have they been sold a raw bill of goods about like being told, oh, career driven, career oriented is the primary focus. And if you watch enough Jordan Peterson, it's not like he's necessarily discouraging of that, but just remember, life gets very long after 45. And while I've had a great career, there's nothing more important to me than having a family and a continuation of narrative and all these things. But I'm just seeing this sort of, reawakening of a wake-up call of...
It's a reaction.
Hey, what the hell?
Yeah, it's a reaction.
It's like one of the best things you can do as a human, and maybe it's not for everybody, but it's probably for most people. Yeah. The idea of focusing on men and women, building a family, having children. It's like, you only get that short window of time that you can actually do it, and to think it's just, that or career, whatever, equal parts fulfillment is very mistaken, and you're seeing this weird moment happening. I think we're right in the middle of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely a reaction to the whole boomer generation that's accomplishment driven, and you see that as expressed in the reaction or the response to the world of technology and social media. You see people talking so much more about presence and mindfulness and being and connectivity, and this language has now become very popular just because people are desperate to hold on to something, and there's only a certain amount of time till you can avoid this God-sized hole, this God-sized puzzle piece that's missing, or this. And children are a little bit of that. It's a little bit like if you want to imitate your creator and be a little bit like that, it's about bringing life into the world and continuing life and cultivating life and creating life and mentoring and continuity and eternity and what's lasting, what's fleeting. You can't escape meaning. Human beings are built to have meaning, are built to have transcendence, are built to impart and give over and continue. Like that's the way God created the world and the human condition. Children are a big part of that, building and creating and making money and expanding. It's also part of it.
They're fundamental to it in some way, it seems.
God created us to put in the world to build, to cultivate, and continue. But there's a difference between our physical abilities and the world of the soul. And you have a significant other, someone to share that with, someone to express that love with, a partner or a spouse or a wife or a husband, whoever, whatever, however form that takes, and some form of passing on or sharing what you have in the world. There's an element of transcendence and godliness there, which touches infinity, and there's no replacement for that.
I definitely remember growing up in like teenage years when you mentioned the idea like, oh, well, on Friday nights through Saturday, like I keep Sabbath, I keep Shabbos. When you're mentioning to people who don't, it used to be looked at as like, oh, well, that's lame. But now when I drop that to like people in their 30s who are so consumed with technology and social media, they say, that's amazing. Oh my God, I wish I could do that. As if it's like some nouveau, it's become cool to unplug, which is a new thing. We used to be like, that's like, that's lame. That's anything with religious impulse to it has this thirst out there that I've been seeing in the secular world. As like growing up, there was such a push against religion as like the secular movement was pushing and becoming more ascendant. And now you're seeing all of this. Like it manifests in all these different ideological movements, but I think people are thirsty for being virtuous, community, family, but
the world
they
is
find
chaotic.
it in weird.
It's untethered.
Right. When it's
the world is
too much chaos.
Untethered in chaos. No, but there's no end in sight. Like at a certain point, you're just like what is the end game for this implosion of like humanity taking place around us? It's like totally nuts.
Yeah.
It's like You look around and just like, what on earth? Like, what's the end? Like, hello, men are not men, women are not women.
Right.
Like, there's the up is not up, down is not like everything is inside out, good
You
and
just
evil.
canceled our episode. They're gonna flag this.
Good and evil.
You just
Everything is
misgendered
crazy.
the episode.
No, the whole world is upside down and crazy and inside out, and people looking for stability, meaning. Home, a place to be, a place to be rooted. Community,
tribe,
friends, mentorship. All this is about being rooted and having stability and a sense of like, okay, is there a path here? Like, is there method to this madness of being in the world? And like the children and a family create that.
I think that's why Jordan Peterson became so popular too. Where Ozzy took me to a talk of it, she asked me, okay, wait, tell me again, who's this guy? What's he about? I'm like, Rabbi for the masses. It's the only way I can describe it. Like, why is his messaging so resonant with so many people? He's giving sort of spiritual depth to a world that was purely secularized for so long, especially in intelligentsia. Like, it was just all, you could get all these great ideas, but without God, without spirituality, without religion, because it didn't,
without veganism.
it just didn't belong in that category. Without veganism, he eats
Brother's eating a lot of meat.
Yeah, he eats only meat. He eats
Nothing but
steak and olive oil, and that's that. That's true.
And not club soda.
Have you ever gone carnivore?
Last Thursday night, we went out to Harvey's Smokehouse in Yerushalayim.
Yeah.
I did like 2 hours of carnivore. I was like on Atkins for 2 hours.
Because you feel like when it's beef or meat, whatever, you could just
Went strong,
you
yeah.
could go strong.
And it's still hungry 2 hours later because you didn't have bread. You didn't have the burger bun. You're like, no, what am I eating?
I don't know if I relate. So
Shabbos
he
without-
doesn't, but I do.
Shabbos without the challah, like you're still looking for something.
It's
huh?
hard.
yeah,
Okay, I went off the rails over here.
I hear that.
That's what we wanted to. You wanted to go off the rails,
Buckle
right?
up,
Right off the bat.
Yeah. No, we came in real strong with the Rabbi stuff.
Yeah, I was
Apologies
worried
for
that this was going to go in a direction because I was looking at through the old episodes. Most of the people that you mentioned, I didn't know from. Like the creators and like the stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not. I just don't. I know enough to like sound relevant sometimes, but I didn't really know most of the things that
You were worried about what? Just feeling like a fish out of water, not knowing what we're talking about.
Yeah, like what we're talking about. Yeah, like I wasn't sure. No, I mean I'm being serious. I don't mean that. I watched some of the stuff. I'm like, wow, I don't know these people. I haven't heard. I just don't. You know what I'm saying? Like I've heard of them from you.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's good. We are curating the creator economy for people who don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I like doing that.
Well, that's what it was. I mean, I know you. I like you, so I was like watching
That's enough.
your things. It was I didn't watch the original ones.
Right.
Or hear about those people.
Yeah, we usually like summarize what the people are saying though. Anyway.
Yeah, I also don't
know.
care. Meaning, like, I can't. There's only so much space. Only so much time and space. I have people that I love and that are my friends that are putting out real things in the world that it's hard to find. Like that, Dr. Benji Epstein on Duncan Trussell. Yeah. That's like a real thing, a big thing in the world. Like, it was on for a week until I had it, and I downloaded it. I still haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
You know what I'm saying? So like, let alone all this other chevra who are, who are whatever talking what they're talking about.
Right.
Well, one of the themes we bring up a lot, to reoccurring theme on this, and in starting the podcast, was the discussion around people from our community and the types of jobs that people do and careers that they go into. You're talking about the things that like we're putting out into the world. I'd love to hear your take on it. Just, I'm not fishing for compliments or even feedback, but I'm just curious what your, perception is of modern Orthodox Jews. That's who we are, and creativity, in the world of creativity, and this weird relationship where parents, especially boomers, want well-developed, well-rounded children up to a point, and then you got to get serious. There was always this mentality. I wonder, you deal with a lot of young kids
now.
now.
Question. It's a real thing. The limits, the buckle up. Meaning, I don't know what the intention of buckle up. But like, are there limits? No. Like, are you like trying to put a limit and a safety, like a safety mechanism on going too fast?
There are. I think that muscle in our brain is there. Of like,
the impulse.
we can't be too honest or too dirty or too whatever.
Well, yeah,
because we are
that's a
part
big
of
thing.
this.
I mean, you're speaking.
Yeah.
You're a member of a community. You're a member of a shul. You're married to a righteous woman.
Yes.
Your kids go to yeshiva.
Yeah.
You daven in shul. You speak at you make impersonations of the rabbi at the shul dinner.
Yeah, sure.
And you push the limits.
Yeah.
You're not so buckled.
Yeah.
In some of on your other parallel accounts.
Here we go. Bring it on.
No, I'm just saying.
Yes, and
is that wrong? No, not and. end. Just,
I thought we were going for
no, I'm
most
wondering. No, I should know. I thought for myself a split second, like, okay, what am I getting myself into over there with these guys?
I didn't think you were gonna say yes
For a split
when Ami
second.
asked
No,
you.
but then I said, but I know Ami. I trust these guys. These are good guys. They would never do something to put me in a situation that'd be uncomfortable. And if they do it, I would say it.
If we were wearing like togas when you came in.
No, togas are fine. There's an element of me which is a manifestation of a very Belushi dick way of being a Yid, of being a Jew. That's not the problem. Togas are the problem. No, it's when things go PG-13.
Yeah.
It's when things get too
PG-13. I unfortunately I think
I'm trying to be. I'm trying to.
I get it.
There's, and I don't want to say Vart from this week's Torah portion, but there is about.
I do struggle with it a
Torah
little.
portion of like going out to war against your enemy, and there's the story of the captive beautiful woman. You know, the proverbial Marine that goes to Vietnam and goes to the Philippines and comes back at the Korean War and comes back with love you long time, whatever, one of these, and we have that in our parsha in the Torah, where there's a captive woman who comes back, who brings her home, and the Torah has like, well, how do we deal with this? There's men at war is a certain reality, you know, the carnivorous, sexual temptation of like domination and the spoils of war go to the victor or whatever, and that's part of the ugly reality of war, which is ugly, and that's in the Torah. And the Torah discusses that as a metaphor for a person dealing with their Yetzer Hara, with their lower inclinations or with their physical or the sexual drive.
And my Instagram relates to
yeah,
this.
what do you do? And then you take her, and then how do you incorporate her into your life? There's a whole process to kind of temper your desire and whatever it is. You can come tomorrow. I'm going to give that at 12 to 11:30 in Abbas Torah. But there's a very sordid kind of complicated situation over there about how you deal with this one, and the Kabbalists relate this as a metaphor. And here's where I think it relates: is this it's called the Eshet Yifat Torah, the woman, this beautiful woman who has been taken into captivity, and the Kabbalists relate that as a metaphor for all of the beauty in art and music and humor and literature or ideas, everything which is beautiful and creative and exciting in the world, which is gorgeous, right? Which expresses the beauty of the soul, which has fallen into captivity, which has been captured, so to speak, by the side, of impurity or of negativity, and how that beauty can be reclaimed, and how that beauty can be incorporated into one's life in a healthy and appropriate way.
Right.
And that's what the Torah describes with this whole discussion of this woman.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there are limits and it's challenges.
I'll be fully honest about it. The way I think about it is that my struggle now is the intersection between sort of certain responsibilities and art where they're intersect. So like I consider a lot of the comedy in the category of art, and it's almost like these ideas have come to me from somewhere. Like they've been put into my, like, when you're looking for creativity, you can say it's a matter of, well, you just summon it, but it comes to you. So these ideas of a joke or a video or this, that, it comes to me from somewhere and it's there. So now I have to grapple with that and say to myself, like, I want to express this. I know it brings joy, and it comes with this cost of maybe being risque or edgy, and I wouldn't want certain people seeing it. But if I was acting in a movie, and oftentimes comedy gets this weird double standard where if it's comedy, well then, like, a comedian tells a joke, oh, he meant the joke, as opposed to if you play like a racist clam number in a movie, everybody understands that's not really him.
Well, you're a mathematician, aren't you? A triangle.
Exactly. Coming back to that full circle. But the idea is that specifically with comedy, it gets this weird double standard where everyone is taking the person at whole cloth face value, that the vehicle of humor is actually intending it to be serious in some way. And I feel like that's one element of it. But then the other element is like, I am pushing it a little bit and I am aware of it, but I'm also like, I assess each time as like a cost benefit of like this. There's something holy to me about laughter in a serious way about doing that. And if I can be a vehicle for this kind of idea and express it in this way that brings laughter, I have my own boundaries, but I'm still figuring those out. And it's like, yeah. And for some reason, so far, I haven't gotten too much. Most people are enjoying it.
No, it's not me. People love you.
Yeah.
And people know that you're a good guy.
Yeah.
And that there's some tongue-in-cheek, like poking fun at it or kind of like analyzing it or kind of putting it out there in the world for people to see in a funny way. And also, it's your thing. Like, that's your ability and your gift.
Yeah.
And it's your thing, and again, is how do you deal with this? The metaphor of that the Talmud says this woman who's fallen into captivity or has been taken into captivity represents all the beauty in the world that's out there for us, so to speak, to incorporate in our lives, and to respect the beauty itself, to respect her. And there's like, that's why her hair is shorn and her nails grow out and she cries over her. She almost like, I don't know, transitions, but kind of like is incorporated or moves into it over. It takes a month, and there's something about that specifically this time of year before high holidays of the complicated give and take and tango with what the lines of appropriateness for that and the definition of beauty and art and what's appropriate and not. It's very subjective. And
so if the head of my children's school comes up to me and says, I came across your, I'm like, hey, Shetivat Torah. I'm just gonna drop that on him.
Did Judah Mischel tell you that? Because that I know the head of your school.
Let's sit with that for a second. Yeah. It's good. It's
but also okay. Whatever. Also, people's is people's, and we all have our dairy restaurant that we eat out of the pool. The hotel pool. You go.
It's my dairy.
It's
my dairy. So while I take a lender's bagel on the road, I'm posting a video.
Hasidim on vacation, meaning every person has their
Hasidim on vacation.
Every person has their
Michael,
thing.
you have to make that for short film.
Fancy.
Hasidim on vacation. I think.
Oh, that's a thing. That's a thing. Whatever. And
you could say by the way, you could say whatever you want. By the way, it's a hotel lobby here. You can say whatever you want. Mixed crowd. They're good with it.
And we're all a work in progress. And so coming on here, I had no idea what to expect. I was like, but I trusted you. I trust you.
I think if this is appearance 1, appearance 2, we can we'll like be even more casual.
Okay.
Get into
Take my shoes off.
I don't know. We'll talk about other topics.
Non-rabbinic.
Non-rabbinic. Yeah.
Anything else on closing final thoughts?
I had one question. I don't know if we have time for it, but I'm learning your book now. Tshuva, the pathway to Tshuva.
Badrech, that's okay.
Badrech, available on Amazon. It's a real like I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm like really naive here. I feel like it's like a real like creative triumph where you really like the format is like very Judah Mischel, like the small, like very short teachings interspersed with stories. Was there was that like a long process to be like, I want my book to reflect exactly the way I teach, or was that just natural? Or
I appreciate that.
Whatever.
That's a meaningful compliment because I really wanted it to be more like representative of I wanted it to feel like we're learning it together. I didn't want it to be like
really.
It's hard because there's always a Yetzer Hara. There's like the hazard of writing it, like you want it to see like to present in a certain way, like whether it be for professional reasons or financial reasons or perception or some guy who never met me want to read this book and see me in a certain way. So, there were some times like those. There's also whatever I tried to not try too hard. That's really what, not to have too many mind, so to speak. But to just kind of like put it out there and put it down on paper, and the way that I would want to share it among friends or I want to share it among in a presentation, and surprisingly felt very comfortable with how it came out. With the feel, I said to the designer, I asked him, is there a way to like make the stories separate, almost like a pause? Right. And originally there was a little pushback from the editor, like, really, it should be longer. Like you want chapters to be longer. And I'm like, nah, I want somebody to be able to pick it up and put it down and not feel guilty and not feel pressured and just kind of like have it as nuggets and enjoy it, either intensely. I think there's some real content in there and there's some real, food for thought, so to speak, and some real, different way of looking at things or some Torah ideas in there. But it's also if you just want to read up and read a good story or play some type of drinking game where you could like every time there's a 90s music reference in there, you can take a shot.
Fugazi.
It's in there. There's 2. At least.
Is there a YouTube clips version of the book? Because I'm all about it.
That's a good shit you should know. There was during COVID when I was writing it, I'm like, I want to put little QR codes, on the bottom, like on the footnotes. Yeah. And have a back, like whole pages of QR code footnotes where you can click it and get that Seinfeld episode.
That's speaking Michael's language.
Get that Seinfeld episode or that or like that Chappelle reference or that, Henry Rollins line or that, there was somebody wrote me such a serious note, someone sent me a message like questioning about the title of a certain chapter about being stuck and whatever that I called flies in the Vaseline. I want to know if it was a reference to the Gemara referring to Amalek as being a fly that's attracted to an open wound. And, and if so, he thought that the Medrash here and shared this whole idea, wrote me this whole shtickle Torah, this whole idea. And I wrote back, I just sent it back the YouTube clip of the Stone Temple Pilots flies the Vaseline song. I'm like, also.
Great song.
Meaning also.
Right.
But when I think of being stuck, I think of that imagery. And that's the nigga.
Yeah, it was very honest also. You weren't hiding from the way you grew up and your own references and all that. I thought it was really brave.
I wanted it to be tshuva, meaning tshuva is very much that itself. And
the book is called
Badrech.
Badrech, pathway towards tshuva.
Along the pathway. That was a big discussion also.
Yeah, I heard a clip about that. Yeah.
Torah, it's not a destination.
Right.
It's along the path specifically.
Right. Yeah.
Because the path is this. What's disingenuous about the idea of the path to tshuva? Tshuva being repentance, Hebrew for repentance.
The path.
Yeah.
Or that there is a place called tshuva that you achieve, that you acquire, that you get to when it's done, as opposed to it being something which is perpetual and constant and always happening.
Which we talk, I felt nothing. It's just the process that is the thing.
Right.
The destination is really not much.
Can we turn it into a Netflix series?
I'm gonna work on that.
Just speak to Dr. Benji. Maybe he can get make it into a.
That sounds like a nice
place
to
talk about Bruno,
end.
but we do talk about Badrech.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Along the path to tshuva with Rav Judah Mischel. Thank you so much for being here on Buckle Up. We are out of time. We can't wait for episode 2 on the follow-up. And that was a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for
being here.
Thanks for having me.
Do it again.
We usually do this weird thing with our fingers, but we could do handshakes.
We could do fingers. Why not? That's
Can I get involved with that, or is that weird? I'm open.
That's Buckle Up episode 41 with Rabbi Judah Mischel, a.k.a. Judah Mischel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you guys.
The Rosh Hashanah special, the High Holiday special, and who better than Rav Judah Mischel? Thank you so much, everybody.
Buckle up, baby.